Hello, and welcome to a special edition of the Royal Scribe News. I'm Abby Whitaker, and today Royal Scribe takes on a sensitive but rather important topic that is currently trending the newsfeed in North America, the Black Lives Matter movement. The movement seeks to broaden the conversation around state violence to include all of the ways in which Black people are intentionally left powerless at the hands of the state. Joining me also today are reporters Reagan McSherry and Chastity Johnson. Let's head over to Reagan, who will be covering local church leaders' perspective on the movement and how that directly ties into their theological and faith values.
Thank you, Abby. The Black Lives Matter movement has been circled in controversy, but it is certainly an important discussion to have. I spoke to two local Christian community leaders who discussed how we might best engage this topic from a faith perspective.
Well, I guess for many African Americans, this is nothing new.
I think the Black Lives Matter movement has come out of a place of deep hurt, justifiably so, out of deep weariness. I think people are tired. I think people are tired of the way they're treated.
The reaction I have is, why is it hitting such a nerve? Why? I mean, you should be able to say that your life matters. You know, that is not a controversial statement.
Our African American brothers and sisters are crying out saying, like there's an issue here, we need your help. And this is about white people fixing not even fixing, but addressing our biases, addressing our subconscious racisms that we didn't even know were there.
I wonder if my children are going to look back at this time and say, what was everyone so angry about? Why was there such a big issue about declaring that these public systems that are there for the protection of the health and safety of the general public, declaring that for some reason there are some injustice there. For some reason, those systems have made it such that we've had to say, hey, this has had a undue, unfair impact on our community.
It's not as important for us to understand what it's like to be Black in America as it is for us to understand what it means to be white in America, to understand our privilege, to understand our position, and how that affects everybody else.
Injustice to the poor is all throughout the Bible. And to me, that's at the heart of the message, is that systematically in our country, in education, in the criminal justice system, and other systems that have profited from just unfair policies and practices. And, we have to be credible as a church and say, hey, we're not about that.
We can invite somebody to come live in our house, but at the end of the day, it's still our house. We could go live with somebody else in their house, but at the end of the day, that's still their house. What does it mean for us to build a new house together so that it's our house? I think that's how the church might have to do it.
As a Christian, I wonder if we've lost what Jesus was really trying to achieve with his movement. Of course, he came to save us from our sins, but he was also creating a new type of family, so to speak, in a world that was deeply divided by race and ethnicity and income and all of that. And so, I struggle with the fact that Jesus made it right. Why am I still dealing with this?
This phrase, tell me more, can be very powerful. Tell me more. Far after, we've had our feelings hurt. Like, okay, tell me more. Long after we think that we know an answer. Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more about what it means that I'm white. Tell me more about this word privilege. Tell me more about that time that you got pulled over because your front tire was over the pedestrian walking lane. Tell me more about that.
Traditionally, anytime you mention racial reconciliation, it's been in the form of an event. And John Perkins, the founder of the Christian Community Development Association, he said famously that reconciliation is not an event. It is not a worship service. It's not a conversation over tea. It is doing life together. Mm-hmm. And there's so many ways in our community that we do not do life together.
DuBose and Conaway agreed that the best reactions are not ones of shock or anger, but of understanding that there are times when it is necessary to challenge the status quo, and the church should definitely play a role in this.
And to say that politics doesn't affect us, to say that the Black Lives Matter movement doesn't affect us, reminds us of the privilege that we as white people live in. It does affect you. It does.
But we have to take what the Bible says seriously. And Jesus came for us to have a full life. And the fact that we have some lives that are not full should make all of us lay awake at night and be prayerful about how do we fix that.
Thank you, Reagan. And next we have myself interviewing one of Johnson's international students and their perspective on how they may have a say in the matter.
Feedy is a junior here at Johnson, and he has gladly let me interview him over the topic of Black Lives Matter. So Feedy, as an international, do you know much about the Black Lives Matter movement?
Yep, I know how it started with the shooting up in Ferguson, and being here as it's developed, I've seen it grow, and I have a few international friends that are strong advocates of the movement. So,
and do you know, as a whole, America is very concerned with this, but do you think internationals will progressively get concerned with this as well?
I think as internationals will see the problem come to light, they will get behind it more, because racism is a problem, not just in America. It's something that happens globally. So getting behind the movement and seeing that there is a danger for Black lives, I feel that should move them to care.
And what is your response to the All Lives Matter movement and discourse to Black Lives Matter?
It was a response to the Black Lives movement, because I just don't think it holds the same weight, because all lives do matter, but in this scenario, it's not all lives that are being threatened, but in particular, it's Black lives that are being put in danger. And so the problem is not that we're not recognizing that all lives matter. It's recognizing that there's a problem and that Black lives are being endangered. And so we need to recognize that they do matter as well as any other life.
And finally, we take it over to Chastity, who brings us the Johnson Community Outlook on Black Lives Matter.
Thanks, Abby. The Black Lives Matter movement, which was sparked in 2012 following the death of Trayvon Martin, is one that is often misunderstood and debated. In an attempt to broaden the conversation and to better understand the true meaning of the movement, I spoke to two people from the Johnson community about their perspectives. Take a look at what they had to say.
For a variety of reasons, over the last several years, I've been exploring the concept of shame, and in an intercultural studies kind of perspective, I've been looking at kind of the distinction between shame and guilt, and more positively sort of honor, dignity things, dynamics, and of late have been asking the question is what might that conversation, the concepts of shame and guilt, how does that inform the Black Lives Matter movement? And in no way am I suggesting that I am an expert on any of this, but I did just want to put my oar in the water because I think the concepts, particularly of shame in a collective corporate context and guilt in a highly individualistic perspective culture, I think those can inform, can shape in a constructive way the way that we might understand the whole movement of Black Lives Matter a little better, and maybe reduce the heat of it and actually begin to push into more of the substance and the content, which at the end of the day hopefully would move us as a society closer together across the various camps, racially, culturally, socially.
I feel like the response to Black Lives Matter is the typical response to oppressed and marginalized people, as far as we are taught and treated like we're not supposed to respond or react or have feelings. It's always hush and grin your teeth and just bear through it, to not disturb the peace of the majority. And it's often treated from the majority's perspective. It didn't happen to me, so it's not happening.
I ran across a really interesting article from by the honor shame academic community. They have a website, they've got a blog, they've published quite a bit. They have an annual conference I've come to learn about, and basically they have a whole discussion about the relationship of shame and honor and Black Lives Matter. And one of the things that they discuss in it that I think is really helpful is they describe shame cultures that are very collective and group oriented, and are all around honor in a positive sense. Shame is the flip side of shame is honor.
As far as what the Black Lives Matter movement is trying to represent and draw attention to, a lot of people feel some type of way about it because it makes them uncomfortable. And of course we have those who take it out of context. As far as saying Black Lives Matter, it's saying that we matter above all people, which that is not the case. And it's more so we have a history of treated as not people or like we do not matter. But that's not how the majority want to view it. They just view it as a hate group. And I mean, I can admit some of that is due to some angry people using that title, that movement, as a cover-up to do things out of their anger, such as riot and loot. But if you look at Black Lives Matter as a whole, that's not what it stands for. That's not what it is about. And that's not the message they are trying to convey. But like anything, people do try to twist and corrupt it.
That a lot of the conversation around Black Lives Matter has just missed the cultural gap between the African American voice that is speaking from a context of honor and shame, and the predominant white privileged community that tends to look at everything from a solely individualistic, guilt-oriented framework. And as long as those two remain separate, rather than informing the discussion together, then I think we're going to continue to be at odds with each other, where the whole Black Lives Movement is carried forward and therefore misunderstood.
It gives some people hope. It gives people voice. It has brought attention to injustice that a lot of people have been overlooking throughout the years. But because of Black Lives Matter, it's challenging people to do something to change and just not have to walk around with their tails tucked between their legs in a way.
So my hope would be is that we could begin a discussion around what where does shame fit in our collective experience as a society in America? Where does guilt fit? And how do we reconcile a very individualistic approach, which basically says if I haven't done anything wrong to my neighbor, then I'm not wrong. On the other hand, where honor and shame are concerned, there is a historical perspective to that carries a massive amount of responsibility to all of us, whether we were born in 1800, 1900, or 2000.
When it comes to protesting, I definitely see how it's necessary, how it's important, how it's impactful, and that goes back from civil rights movement to even now with the pipeline and the Native American reservations. We just see how their protesting has brought forth a difference and brought forth a change, and now they are rerouting. So I feel like protests are useful when done in the right manner and done in the right way. But it's just interesting to me how when it comes to Black Lives Matter, whenever they do try to protest, people immediately make it seem like something evil, make it seem like they're spewing hate, which really they're spewing the opposite. They're trying to spread love and acceptance for their own kind, but people want to twist that to make it something. I appreciate those who do try to understand, so that's has helped me become closer to them. It has helped me align with people with similar missions of racial reconciliation and want to fight against injustice, no matter if that's for the African American population or Muslim populations or any other type of refugees or any type of impoverished person or oppressed person. Even when it comes to homosexuality, it has kind of aligned you with people of those same like-mindedness. So it's been refreshing in that sense. But I just feel like it's just heavily misunderstood and in some cases misused. And so that's the sad and ugly part of it.
I would love to see where our contribution at Johnson could move forward in the whole discussion relative to unpacking these concepts of shame and guilt.
Thank you, Chastity. Throughout this news coverage, it is essential to note that the Royal Scribe staff did try to reach out to the Knoxville chapter of the Black Lives Matter movement, but received no response. Thank you for tuning into this special edition of the Royal Scribe News. I'm Abby Whitaker reporting. Have a blessed day.